Hello and welcome to this video, my best camera gear of the year. The 4th year running that I've been making these, and they have been getting progressively longer, but my aim is to make this maybe not the shortest one, but certainly not the longest, which is going to be challenging because there's been a lot of stuff come out this year. I need to make it clear what qualifies something to be in this video. It needs to have shipped this year, it could have been announced last year, but shipped this year, and most importantly, I need to have actually used it. You can be watching this and you'll go, that's not right, this is better than that. Well, that may be true, but if I've not used it, it doesn't qualify, so I'm sorry. So maybe I should just rename this video instead of best gear of 2020, maybe my favourite gear of the year. Actually, that sounds so much better. First up, best action camera. You may notice that each year these categories can be somewhat fluid. There may be this category one year, but not the next year. And I may completely make up something new this year, and I will. The reason being is there's not always something that comes out that fits into that category each year. Well, not something that's come out that I've actually used, which is mainly the reason. But when it comes to action cameras this year, I got the GoPro Hero 9 and nothing else, which means by default, the winner of the best action camera of 2020 is the GoPro Hero 9. But actually, it is a very worthy winner. It is a big improvement over the 8, which was a disappointing upgrade, to be honest with you. And it's the one I've been using, and I had the choice of all the other ones, and I prefer it over the others because it's a front and rear screen. It works really well, and it has the GoPro image, which I like, super wide lens, which I like, and really good stabilization. Plus it has the ability to remove the lens filter covers, whatever you want to call them, which for some reason they stopped taking off in the Hero 8. It's a much better GoPro, and it is a worthy winner. And talking of new categories, here is the best "why the hell has somebody not made this before" of 2020. The Revo ring is a variable step-up ring. Instead of all the little ones that you screw together, this covers big chunks. So not the whole range because that's too big, but you'll have, for example, a 67 to 82 range. So any of your lenses that have those filter diameters, you put this on it, and then you have an 82mm filter on the front of it. Or you get the Revo ring with the built-in variable ND, which is actually very, very good quality. It works really well, and it's cheap. Why the hell did somebody not make this before of 2020? Next up is best 3-axis gimbal. There's actually been quite a few new gimbals this year. There's been the Ice Cam from Italy, which is a really cool hand-built to order one. I haven't really used it much yet, but I'll hopefully use it much more in the new year. There's been the Gimbal Crane 2S, going back to that traditional design, which is also very, very good. And I'll have something more about that in the new year. But the ones which have really caught my eye have been DJI's new Ronin ones, but they're not called Ronin anymore, they're called the R series. So the RS2 and the RSC2. These gimbals are the replacements for the original Ronin S and SC. They've had a big overhaul in their design and can take bigger payloads, with the S2 being able to handle more than the SC2. They are roughly the same weight, with the S2's carbon fibre design offsetting the heavier motors. The S2 also has a really nice little touchscreen, so you don't have to use your phone to access the controls. The SC2 has a much more basic screen, but still lets you change your settings. The other big difference is the S2 has a removable battery, whilst the RSC2 has a really lovely hinge design to go from traditional shooting mode to the briefcase mode. These new R gimbals are much more refined than the original ones, and when used with their new Raven Eye image transmission system, unlocks a host of clever features. I was making a review a couple of months ago, but whilst filming my last on-camera walking section with the RS2, my car was broken into and they took the RSC2, my Sony a7S III, Canon R5 and lots of lenses, all totaling about £25,000. I am still hoping to finish the review in the new year, as I have replacements for most of the stolen gear. I just need to get over that negative association that the theft caused. Now, choosing which one is the best is hard. The S2 is the better of the two in terms of payload and the screen, but the RSC2 is much lighter, has the same features, but also has the really nice hinge design. So in typical cop-out fashion, the best 3-axis gimbal 2020 is the DJI RS2 and RSC2. Sorry. Next up is best light. Starting at the top end, there's the £2,400 Rotolight Titan X1. This is a 1x1 RGB WW with a pretty impressive light output. It has a really intuitive and slick interface built into it, which gives you access to all its various modes, gels, RGB, special effects, and lots more. The killer feature though is the truly unique electronic diffusion. This gives you the ability to change the light from a hard light to a soft light just by turning the dial. It truly is revolutionary, and I'll be doing more on this light soon. Dropping down in price is the excellent just over £300 Came TV Bolton Q55S, which I use in my office live setup as my key light. It's a much improved version of their bi-colour 55-watt Fresnel fixture, competing directly with the much more expensive bi-colour Dado light. It's a great light that can be used as a backlight or, as I'm using it here, as a key light with their much improved softbox on the front. And if you look at my recent YouTube lives as well as my 2 Canon R5 videos, that's what I've been using. The roughly £40 Spiffy Gear Q6 is a more powerful second generation version of their Lumi. It comes as either an RGB or bi-colour version. It's a great light to have on you at all times due to being wearable. But the main use is for filming, and you can use it in all sorts of places. Be really creative with it, double them up, triple them up, use the special effects to get some really cool stuff. It really is a very cool, flexible light and has a built-in battery, lasts an hour, has got a magnet in it, and yes, you can wear it as a fashion accessory. And then there's the roughly £65 Aperture Accent B7C. This is a light I have wanted to exist for years. It's a 7-watt smart bulb with a CRI of 95, bi-colour from 2000 to 10,000 degrees Kelvin. Because it's also RGB, you can of course have any colour you want, as well as all those special effects modes, which sometimes can actually be really quite handy. My house has Philips Hue bulbs all over it, and they're nice to the eye, but cause rolling bands on camera when they're not at 100% brightness, which of course makes them impractical for filming, which is annoying because they're all over the house. The B7Cs can be dimmed to whatever you want with no issues like that on camera at all. This is a professional light. They have an internal battery but can be run purely from plugging into a light socket and operating by a light switch. I absolutely love these, and I expect every light fixture in my house will have one of these at some point. In fact, the Aperture Accent B7C light bulb is what's lighting me. I have 2 more behind me which I'm using to accentuate the candle lights that you can see in shot. They're in the ceiling and they're set to the fire mode in the special effects, and they work really well with the app, and overall I just think they're fantastic lights and a worthy winner in a very competitive category this year of Best Light of 2020. Next up is Most Useful Product of the Year. So the original winner of this category was going to be the Aperture B7B light bulb, as well as the best lighting product. But then I got a new piece of post-production software, a plugin, which completely changed my mind. Cinematch is made by the same people who make Film Convert Nitrate. This isn't a grading tool like that. This is purely for matching cameras. And to show you what it does, I've set up 4 different cameras and I'm going to make them all match. The main camera on me is the Sony a7S III. The Christmas tree camera is the Panasonic S5. The camera on the iFootage Shark Slider Nano is the Sony a7C. And finally, the BTS camera is the Canon C70. So all different color sciences, but the thing in common is they're all in their respective log profiles, as this is what Cinematch needs to work with currently. You also need to make sure you manually white balance, or at least film the same white or grey card on all cameras. Please don't use auto white balance. I won't go into detail as to how to use it right now, as that would slow down this video too much, but I'm going to do a standalone video about it very soon. So I'm going to make all the cameras match the main camera, which is the Sony a7S III in S-Log3. I could just as easily make all the cameras look like the C70, effectively giving them all Canon color science. So let's see if I can make these cameras match during this sequence about the sponsor of this video, Skillshare. It would be an understatement to say this has been a pretty terrible year, but despite spending a ridiculous amount of time cooped up at home, I have tried to stay creative and busy. It's not been easy and requires discipline and motivation. And Skillshare is a great way of challenging yourself and getting that motivation, learning some new skills. If you want to focus on something you're already doing, for example, your filmmaking and photography, there's loads of courses about that too. One of the biggest challenges for me this year was starting up a new YouTube channel. And there's a great course by Sorel Amor about this exact subject, which is full of great advice.
What I would love for you to do now is to take the time to write down about 30 different interests, anything at all, just to get your brain kicking into gear. It could be as simple as you love your cat, you love your cat, you love your cat, you love your cat, you love your cat.
My new channel's doing well, and I do encourage you to check it out, as it is basically a natural extension of this channel, with the same high production values and creativity, just with a slightly different focus. Of course, I also encourage you to check out Skillshare, and if you click the link in the description below, the first 1,000 people will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium, and after that, it's about $10 a month. So, as you can see, Cinematch has done a pretty good job. And if you want to get it, you can use my surname Bloom to get 25% off your purchase of it. So without question, the winner of most useful product of 2020, I just wish I'd had it a lot sooner, is Cinematch. Next up is very important to this camera right now, best slider. My favourite slider system is made by Rhino. Their motion control setup with the Arc 2 pan and tilt head is absolutely fantastic, but it came out last year, so it doesn't qualify. The two sliders I've used this year are the Zeppelin Micro 2 and the iFootage Shark Slider Nano. Both are motorized sliders, although I believe the Zeppelin one can be used manually if you take the motor off, although I haven't tried that. Both of them move in a similar way. They can slide double their physical length by the whole slider moving, not just the carriage. Although it can only do this if the slider isn't on the ground. It needs to either be on a tripod or with the Zeppelin Micro 2 with this clever screw-on, add-on feet. Is that what you call it? Both work with apps or can be controlled directly from the slider. They both work well and do what they're supposed to do. Neither are what I would call silent, but at slow speeds you can use them for a second angle for an interview without affecting your audio too much, as long as it's not too close to the microphone, like my setup when I'm talking on camera in this video, which is using the iFootage Shark Slider Nano because it has a clever trick that lifts it up above the Zeppelin in features. The carriage has an integrated panning design, which you set the direction in the app. This lets you keep your subject centered rather than have them moving from left to right in the frame, or right to left. They are both quite heavy considering their small size, but are still very portable. The Zeppelin is up and running in a few seconds, but the iFootage one seems to take quite a long time to go through this calibration every time you start it up. Bit of a pain that. Whilst neither are as good as my Rhino setup, they are much cheaper and smaller. And I do see myself using them, especially for product shots. I mean, Grogu shots. The panning feature of the 420-pound-ish iFootage slider makes it a better motorised one, but the Zeppen Micro 2 is still really good, especially for its roughly £315 price tag, but that is without the feet. Best side of 2020 goes to the iFootage Shark Nano. The next one is a big category and probably the thing I've had the most new things of, and that is best lens. So yeah, I have tried quite a few and bought far too many new lenses this year, and trying to figure out what really is going to be the winner out of those is quite difficult. Do I go with the one which has the best image, or is the most useful, or is the most innovative? And that was the really tricky bit. Most of the lenses that I bought this year didn't come out this year, and most were for either the Sony E mount or Canon RF mount. One of the highlights was the Sony 200 to 600mm f5.6 to 6.3 and the 135 f1.8 GM. I use these lenses a lot for the European launch film for the Sony a7S III, Now I See Part 2. For the lenses that actually came out this year, I think my favourite E-mount lens was probably the absolutely fantastic Sigma 85mm f1.4 DG DN art lens. It's so great to see Sigma release E-mount lenses that don't weigh over a kilogram. But the lens that surprised and impressed me the most was for the Canon RF mount, and that was the 800mm f11. When this lens was announced alongside the 600mm f11, I didn't get it. A really slow, fixed aperture lens, albeit a very long lens. But the more I looked into them, the more they intrigued me, as I love long lenses. I don't have a single lens that can reach that, but I do have the Canon EF 100 to 400mm, and I can use that with my 2x adapter. Likewise, I can get to 1200mm with the Sony 200 to 600 with their 2x adapter. What makes this Canon lens special is the weight of just 1.26 kilograms, its size, and the price of around £950, especially compared to the roughly £13,000 4.5 kilogram Canon 800mm f5.6 EF. Yes, it's 2 stops brighter, but it's £12,000 more expensive and 3.2 kilograms heavier. This RF lens is also just 28 centimeters in length, but does need extending to go into the shooting position. You do have to accept the compromises with this lens, like being a fixed f11, which causes the autofocus area to only be a square box in the center of the frame, but honestly, I don't care. To have this focal length at the size, weight and price, and still give you fantastic results is amazing. So I'm going to go with the Canon 800mm RF lens. Not because it's the most practical or the best image, it's just so clever and so unique and innovative. And it is something that I could see myself buying and actually using quite a lot, because I do love telephoto lenses, and it isn't anywhere near as limiting as I thought it would be. In fact, it's quite the opposite of that. So yeah, best lens of 2020 really.